God didn't give Virgo easy gifts. He gave them 5 gifts that most people around them will never recognize as blessings, because from the outside, they seem like just demands, perfectionism, a difficult way of being. But each of these 5 gifts has a function that goes far beyond what any internet horoscope has ever explained to you. One of them makes you see cracks that no one else sees before they become ruins. Another makes you fix the world in silence without ever demanding recognition for it. There's a third that organizes the chaos where others only see confusion, and a fourth that pushes you forward until you forget what it means to feel enough. And there's a fifth, the most silent of all, that makes you give until you're dry inside, thinking that deep down, this is what makes you deserve to stay. The problem was never about possessing these gifts. The problem is that no one ever taught you that they came with instructions, and that without them, each of these gifts can become exactly what hurts you the most. There's something no one has told you about yourself, Virgo. While everyone was busy calling you a perfectionist, demanding hard to please, no one stopped to ask where this hunger to do everything right comes from. No one asked why you see the flaw before you see the beauty. What if I told you that this isn't a flaw at all, that it's a gift that was placed in you even before you learned to doubt yourself? There's an old, almost forgotten idea that each sign carries a purpose that goes beyond character, a purpose that seems more like a silent mission. And Virgo, among all the signs, is the one that received the most difficult gifts to bear. Not because they are weak, but because they are gifts that require humility to be recognized as gifts and not as burdens. Imagine an art restorer. She enters a room full of paintings that everyone else considers perfect. People walk by, admire them, take photos. Only she sees the fine cracks beneath the paint, the spots where the varnish will peel off in a few years, the places where the color has already begun, slowly to fade. She doesn't see this because she wants to spoil anyone's experience. She sees it because she was trained, or perhaps born, to see what still needs care before it becomes ruin. This is how Virgo walks through the world. While others see a beautiful friendship, you've already noticed the crack in trust. While others see a perfect plan, you've already felt the weak point that will crumble under pressure. And this, for years, you learned to hide, because every time you pointed out the crack, someone called you negative, boring, someone who doesn't know how to appreciate things as they are. But I need to ask you something calmly. What if that first gift, the ability to see before everyone else, wasn't meant to make you suffer alone with what others don't see? What if it was, in fact, a form of protection, offered to you because someone, on some level beyond logic, trusted that you could bear to carry that vision without breaking? You have a second gift, linked to the first, that almost no one born under the sign of Virgo recognizes as a gift. It's the ability of your hands, your time, your attention, to fix things without making a fuss. You are the type of person who solves problems before they become crises, who sends the unsolicited warning message, who stays late fixing what others left half-finished. And most of the time, no one notices, because a job well done, quietly, is almost invisible. Imagine a gardener pruning a tree before a storm. No one will come to thank him because no one saw the branch that would break, the gust of wind that would knock everything down if he hadn't gone there in the early morning with his own hands to cut what needed to be cut. People will only see the tree standing the next day and will think it was always safe that way. You are that gardener. And the problem with carrying that gift is that it gradually teaches you to expect less recognition than you deserve. You start to think it's normal to care without being cared for. You start to think that's what love is, sustaining in silence without demanding anything in return. And it's precisely at this point, Virgo, that the blessing begins to weigh like a burden, because no one taught you where the line is between serving out of love and disappearing out of fear. There is also a third gift, the most misunderstood of all, the mind that organizes from within the chaos that outside no one can even see anymore. Except there's a catch. And that's the detail no one has told you until now. That mind that organizes everything outside has never learned to organize itself inside the home. It knows how to solve other people's problems, but freezes when the problem is its own heart. And that's exactly what made me search for a long time for an answer that wasn't just another pretty phrase about self-knowledge. It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book. It doesn't treat Virgo as a sign full of quirks, but rather as someone who has literally received gifts that are too difficult to bear alone. Inside, you understand why this mind that organizes everything needs first to learn to organize its own inner silence before trying to organize the world outside. It's not a book to calm you down for 5 minutes. It's a tool to truly develop the ability to go deep, to not stop at the surface of yourself, because deep down, you already do that with everything around you, except with yourself. If you've made it this far, it's because something in this text resonated with you in a way you don't usually let anyone see. Perhaps you're recognizing for the first time clearly a pattern that has always existed but never had a name. This discomfort isn't a sign to close the video. It's a sign that a part of you already knew this. The link is in the first pinned comment. But be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. In the comments, tell me something. When was the last time you solved someone's case and nobody realized it was you? One detail that changes everything you thought you knew about yourself. You weren't born a perfectionist because you're too demanding. You were born this way because, at some very early point in life, you learned that being impeccable was the surest way to avoid being abandoned. No one taught you this with words. No one sat down with you and said, if you make a mistake, someone will leave. But your body learned, your way of organizing your room learned, your way of reviewing every message before sending it learned. And this silent learning became the fourth gift, the heaviest of all, the relentless pursuit of doing everything right, in the hidden hope that this time, no one will leave you. Notice how many times as a child praise only came after the highest grade, the tidiest room, the most exemplary behavior. No one needed to say it aloud for the lesson to sink in. The silence on the days you did just enough, compared to the enthusiasm on the days you exceeded expectations, was enough. The body records this before the mind understands, and it is this body, years later, that still reviews every phrase, every gesture, every choice, trying to ensure that this time too it will be enough to deserve to stay. Imagine a sculptor who has been working on a single piece for years. He's already done enough for any ordinary person to consider it a masterpiece. But he's still there, in the middle of the night, retouching a detail that only he sees, because in his mind, the sculpture is never quite ready to be shown to the world. People look from the outside and see talent. He looks from the inside and sees only what's still missing. You are that sculptor, Virgo, and the chisel in your hand doesn't stop working even when your body begs for rest, because stopping seems dangerous. Stopping seems like admitting that what you've done, as it is already enough. And if there's one thing you've learned to fear, it's the word enough. Because if it's enough now, what will keep you moving tomorrow? What will justify all the effort you've invested so far? This is a question most Virgos have never had the courage to answer, because answering it would mean admitting that perhaps all this time they had been trying to deserve a love that, in reality, never depended on any perfection. Remember the last time you finished something, a project, a text, a decoration, a presentation, and instead of feeling proud, the first thing that came to mind was a mental list of everything that could have been better. This habit seems like self-demand, but it's actually a form of internal dialogue that learned very early on to never let go of the body's state of alert. As long as the chisel keeps striking, you're still in control. The moment you let go, there's a void there, a silence that, for many Virgos, seems more frightening than the very exhaustion of never stopping. And it's in this void, precisely, that the question most avoid resides. Who am I when I'm not being useful, productive, impeccable? It's not a question that can be answered overnight. But the simple fact that you've made it this far, listening without switching off, without closing the video to do another task, is already, silently, a form of answer. If this pattern of never feeling ready enough has appeared in your life more times than you'd like to admit, there's a practical way to understand where it comes from and how to let go of the chisel without feeling guilty about it. The book, The Divine Wisdom That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Purposeful Life, dedicates an entire section to this exact point, the difference between shaping with purpose and shaping out of fear. It's the kind of reading that gives you back the permission to consider something finished. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. There is a fifth gift in Virgo that is almost never called a gift because it hurts too much to be recognized as a blessing while it is happening. It is the ability to give until there is almost nothing left for oneself, and yet continue giving because it seems wrong to do otherwise. You've probably heard in some way that Virgo is the sign that serves, but almost no one explains the invisible price of that service when it has no limit. It's not about being generous. It's about a generosity that never reserves anything for itself, because somewhere inside you, there's still the belief that your worth is directly linked to how much you can offer. Imagine a well in the middle of a village with little water. Everyone goes to it every day to fill their buckets, quench their children's thirst, and water their crops. The well never complains. The well never runs dry. But slowly, without anyone noticing, the water level inside starts to drop. And when someone finally notices that the well is almost dry, the first question they ask isn't, "How can we help the well fill up again?" The question is, why did it stop giving water the way it always did? You know this well because you are that well, Virgo. You've learned to give advice, comfort, solutions, presence, revisions, practical help, even before anyone asks. And when it's finally your turn to need something, a part of you freezes, because asking seems like a reversal of the natural order of things. You were made to care, weren't you? So who are you to also need to be cared for? This is probably the most dangerous gift to carry alone, because it disguises itself as a virtue. The people around you will call you strong, helpful, someone who can be trusted. And no one will realize that meanwhile you are drifting away from yourself, a little each day, one bucketful at a time. If you've recognized this wellspring at some point in your own life, that's exactly the part that the book, The Divine Wisdom That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Purposeful Life, addresses with the most delicacy. How to fill your own well before continuing to serve everyone else's, without guilt, without feeling selfish about it. It doesn't ask you to stop caring for anyone. It teaches you calmly to put your own bucket in line too, something Virgo rarely learns on their own. It exists to give you back the right to receive as well. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. There is a sixth gift, even more silent, that sustains all of this beneath the earth, like a root that no one sees while only looking at the tree. It is the loyalty of Virgo, the kind that doesn't change with the seasons, that remains firm even when the person you love disappears, makes mistakes, disappoints. While the other signs love with visible intensity, you love with invisible constancy. You are the root that holds the tree upright during the storm that no one outside even noticed happened. And perhaps that's why, when someone finally leaves after years of receiving that loyalty without ever reciprocating, The pain that remains isn't just one of loss. It's the pain of discovering that no root, however strong, can single-handedly hold up a tree that has already decided to fall. There's a scene that repeats itself in different forms in the life of almost every Virgo. The moment when someone you've supported for years without asking for anything in return turns their back on you with an ease that seems impossible for someone who gave so much. And the first reaction is usually to wonder what you did wrong, if it wasn't enough, if you should have done more. Rarely is the right question asked. Why, for so long, did you accept being the sole source of a relationship that should have had two? This doesn't mean that loyalty is a flaw to be corrected. It means that, at some point, it needs to stop being offered blindly, without anyone confirming whether there are roots on the other side as well, or just a pretty branch waiting to bloom on its own and leave when the season changes. Loyalty without reciprocity is not a virtue, it's survival disguised as love. And perhaps this is one of the most difficult and most necessary lessons that Virgo still needs to learn. And it is here that all these gifts meet in the same place, forming the paradox that is perhaps the most difficult to admit about being a Virgo. You were made to illuminate the path of others, but you almost never learn to see your own path in the dark. Imagine a lighthouse perched atop a cliff. Its function is simple: to rotate its light night after night, so that ships don't get lost among the rocks. Sailors look at that light from afar and feel safe. None of them ever goes there to ask if the lighthouse itself is all right. Nobody thinks about taking care of the lighthouse because the lighthouse, by definition, is the thing that takes care of things. You've been a beacon for so many people, Virgo. The family that only called when they needed advice. The friend who disappeared on good days and came back on bad. The relationship where you single-handedly held up the emotional structure of both of them, thinking it was love, when in reality it was overload disguised as dedication. Consider this. No lighthouse lights its own light thinking about ships. It simply rotates because it's in its nature to rotate. But over time, someone realized that that light was useful and began to depend on it without ever asking where the energy that kept it lit came from. That's how it works with you. People get used to your availability so quickly that they start treating it as something guaranteed, as if you were powered by an infinite source, instead of someone who also feels cold on stormy nights. And the question that no one has ever asked, not even you, is, who illuminates the lighthouse when it gets dark inside? There's nothing wrong with being the person others seek out when their boat is rocking. The problem starts when that becomes the only way you know how to earn a place in the world, and you forget that you also have the right to rock sometimes, without having to stay upright turning the light on just because someone somewhere might still need it. This is precisely where astrology meets psychology, because there is no symbol, no birth chart, no house or planet that can solve this for you. What solves it is the conscious and difficult decision to stop confusing usefulness with value. You are not worth what you can solve for others. You are truly valuable when you are extinguished, when you are exhausted, when you have no light to offer anyone that night. This is the turning point that the book, The Divine Wisdom that guides your zodiac sign to a purposeful life, helps sustain until the end. It doesn't teach you to shine brighter for others. It teaches you to light a light within for a change. It talks precisely about what no generic horoscope usually explains, how a sign made to guide others can finally learn to guide itself. It's about transforming the lighthouse into a home, without guilt, without fear of being dark for a moment while it recharges. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. And perhaps that is, in the end, the true nature of Virgo's gifts. They never came to make you useful in anyone's eyes. They came to make you profound, caring, loyal, incapable of accepting the surface of things when there is something more genuine underneath. The eye that sees the crack before everyone else, the hands that mend without fanfare, the mind that organizes what seems impossible to organize, the chisel that is not content with shallowness, the well that sustains an entire village, the root that holds the tree in the storm, the lighthouse that guides ships that will never know the name of the one who saved them. None of these gifts were given to you by chance, and none of them need to continue to be carried alone, in silence, as if asking for help were a betrayal of your own nature. There is a huge difference between carrying a gift as a burden and carrying a gift as a blessing. And that difference lies not in the gift itself, but in how you learn to relate to it. The same gaze that sees cracks can learn to see, with the same clarity, the beauty that already exists. The same hands that mend other people's worlds can finally learn to rest on their own lap without guilt. The same mind that organizes the chaos outside can, with patience, also organize an inner space for rest, something no planet taught you to do on your own. Perhaps the most profound blessing Virgo can receive isn't a new gift. It's the permission finally granted to herself to rest without ceasing to be who she is, to be cared for without ceasing to care, to shine inwardly with the same silent faithfulness with which she has always shone outwardly. And if, throughout this video, some phrase resonated too deeply to be a coincidence, perhaps it's because deep down, you always knew these gifts existed. All that was missing was someone to name each one of them aloud.